Yeah, so I moved and I had to break down my kit, but I moved from a Bortle Class 6 Sky to a Bortle Class 5 Sky, and it's time to rebuild the kit because this Sky is begging to be looked at. So here's the kit, and you can see up top I got the Evostar 72, small little Apo refractor. Below that is the EQM 35 mount on its tripod, fully extended. So I've mounted a surge protector here, along with a computer adapter, because I power a DC hub that then sends all the power that I need out to everything that I do on this particular machine. So here you can see the EQM 35 Pro controller with the right ascension and declination cables. So we're gonna work on getting this thing back in action. Up at the top here, I've got a bracket that holds all my onboard computers. It is one bolt, but it's a lock nut, and it's not going anywhere. And then back here, I made a DIY focuser that is my next. That's my next step on getting this thing all put back together. I've got a Hotech self-centering field flattener, and then the camera is going to be attached right back here. So here's the focuser. It's a MyFocuser Pro 2 design, and I made the bracket out of a couple pieces of aluminum, and then this is a power converter that I found for actually it's mainly used on golf carts, but it works very well with the setup that I have, stepping that power down for my stepper motor. So I'm gonna go ahead and mount this. It's gonna fit right on the bottom of the scope, kind of right in this position here. Let's get this focuser installed. I am just going to line this hole up on the coupler with the focuser stem here, and then tighten it all up using this little hole here to gain access to these grub screws on the end. All right, so I gotta just make sure it's lined up. Into that grub screw, and tighten it down. All right, that's good. Now I need to get 3 little screws and put them in these holes here. All right, now I don't want to over tighten these because it is just the focuser, but there is another grub screw in there that I need to tighten. So I'm just gonna rotate my focuser, which is rotating that stepper, and there's my other grub screw. So I'll go in and tighten that up. That is nice and tight. Now the stepper motor is directly attached to my focusing unit. Okay, so here's kind of a free-floating view. So I got some cables coming off of all of this, but we'll talk about that as we move through the rest of this video. With the focuser and its power converter installed, let's talk about what's gonna go up in this space up here. So this is all of my onboard computing. It is a little cobbled together, but it kind of needs to be. The bigger box is the brains for the focuser, for the MyFocuser Pro 2. There's a Arduino Nano in here. Maybe I'll do another video where I open this up and show you guys what is inside here. But for the time being, we're going to focus on the fact that this project box houses the brain for that. Here's my Raspberry Pi. It's a Cana kit. It's the 4 gig. And then I've got from DeepSkyDad, I've got a DC2 hub, which discovering this it made all the difference in the world. It allowed me to clean up most of the cabling that was running all around my machine. And then from here, on top of that, is just a buck converter that allows me to take the power that's coming in. If you remember from that computer adapter, that power comes in here and then is distributed out amongst all of these different ports. One of these feeds up here, which feeds then all my lower voltage USB devices. I've got a couple of wires hanging out of the Raspberry Pi because I also built my own flip flap. So then I don't have to be outside to do my darks. The shutter will open and close all on its own. Little servo here, and you can see the power cables and cords. They all kind of connect together. So really nothing fancy here. Just got a couple of Velcro patches on each side and the bottom, keeping this kind of all together. And that's plenty strong for the forces of gravity that are going to be pulling on this throughout the night. So, and not to mention the fact that it makes it super easy to remove. So I'm just going to line these up, press them into place, make sure that they are set. There you go. Onboard computer installed. So now we'll go ahead and mount the shutter or the flip flap, whatever you want to call it. And this is my homemade version of it. Essentially, it's just a bit of for sale sign plastic corrugated, mimicking cardboard, with some an aluminum bracket that I bent to tie on to the horn for the servo. And this is just a 20 kilogram servo, plenty of horsepower to do what I needed to do. I then hot glued some neoprene to the back of this card, and the bolts here and the studs, they go through, they're here, but they're very short, they're very low profile. I'm not sure if you can even see the bump out there from those coming through, but it doesn't really matter because when this closes, it's in that dead space. So it sits just like this on here. And this is the support for it all is a drone landing gear, actually, that I just kind of trimmed down. I added some rubber to the base here to help it grip, and then I zip tied a mounting plate to hold the servo. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and set this on here like this, and I get those feet for the drone landing gear in the right position, and then I'll just zip tie, put a couple zip ties around it, and that is plenty. And so I use K-Stars as my imaging software, and I'm also using to control the servo, Indi servo blaster cap. And so that's recognized by K-Stars. And so when I start my session, it'll go ahead and just open about that speed. I'll take my images, and then K-Stars will tell the onboard computer that I'm going to start to take my darks. And so then this will automatically shut, and I don't have to go out and put the lens cap on or anything. It just closes and fires away my darks for me. So I'll go ahead and strap that in now. All right, so I'll just slip a zip tie through here. And I also like to just push on this, just because it's, when that's going to be shut, that motor, that servo is going to be putting tension on this. So make sure that sits flush up there. And now I like that, so I will try to get a couple more clicks out of this. And then I'll just run one more through the feet here. That's pretty good right there, I think. So yeah, so send signal, this opens, boom, take my pictures, and at the end of the night, darks. This closes, pop, and take my darks. And so you can see that it is covering the entirety of that lens. I can adjust it if need be, obviously, repositioning things, but for now, gets the job done. So the camera I'm using is the Canon 60D, and I'm also using a Svaboni CLS filter on here. So set up, I don't want to get busted in there too much. And then I am using a dummy battery inside there. So this isn't really a battery, it's just a dummy. Go ahead and slip that in. And then I will pop that open there. And that should let me close that door. Perfect. So then here I've got a little barrel jack. And again, this feeds its power off of the DeepSkyDad DC Hub 2 up there. So we'll see what that looks like here in just a second. So then I can use the Hotech here as somewhat of a field rotator to get this into position. It's a self-centering, so I just loosen this ring, and that takes the compression off of some of the rubber gaskets that are inside. I'll go ahead and pull this out and show you. There we go. So with the self-centering action, there's these rubber grommets, and this, you can see that's kind of sliding back. And then once this screw or this ring is all the way back this way, then these kind of are free to slide around. So then when I do put it in and I spin this ring, it compresses these gaskets, which expand and fill the back end of the focuser, and center this field flattener in position. So I'll go ahead and slip this back in. And you'll feel it too as you tighten. Before I even set these thumb screws, it'll start to kind of fill that space back there. And I don't want to over tighten it too much, but go ahead and set my thumb screws now so it doesn't slip out. And you know what? I mean, that's honestly, that's not going anywhere. And there's no play in it either. So kind of pushing up and down on it, there's no play. I'm really happy with that Hotech. One thing I did do off camera was I put on the dew strap up here, and that cable actually runs underneath the onboard computer setup, and I have its control velcroed right up here. But what I want to focus on now is the installation of my guide cam, which I'm using the ZWO ASI 120 Mini as my guide cam, and then I have the ZWO 30F4 as my guide cam scope. So go ahead and slide that in and turn that thumb screw down. I'll slide it up a little, give me some clearance. Okay, that's nice and tight. So I did kind of rotate the whole thing a little bit this way just to give me some clearance to be able to put the guide cam on there. Now everything is on, and I will go ahead and start kind of wiring everything up. So I'll show you what I have once it is completely wired, but that is essentially the kit, as it were. So hopefully I'll be able to get out in the field and start taking some images with it soon. So here it is in its full glory. I spared you the running of all the wires, but what I will take you through is the way that everything is connected. So power comes in through the surge protector down here, and then there's one thing plugged in, and that's this computer power adapter. So this is a 19 volt 6.7 amp adapter, and then that power runs up through this wire bundle here and comes into what I have been calling a power converter for the stepper motor, and that's not the case. This is a power converter for the whole kit. It can take anywhere up to 24 volts in and then spits out 12 volts. So that's what it's doing. It's taking the 19 volts from the computer adapter and converting it into useful power, and then sends it out via these lines over to this small box here, which is that DC hub 2. So this is one input, and then I have a couple of 12 volts, a 5 volt, one of these, there's a couple extra 12 volts over here, and another 5 volt. The 5 volt feeds power to my Raspberry Pi on this side, and then one of these 12 volts I'm bringing into this buck converter by Drok, and buying an extra 2 5 volt ports out of the 12 volt. So it's taking that 12 volt, knocking it down to 5 volts, and I'm able to use that. And this one feeds my dew heaters here and here, my dew straps, I should say. And then from there, this guy is powering my shutter, my flip flap up front, and that's pretty much everything that's coming out of the DC2. So since I'm powering, also we'll follow the line up into the Raspberry Pi, I'm also powering the Raspberry Pi from that DC hub, and then the Raspberry Pi is sending signal down to my autofocuser box, project box down here that we talked about earlier. And then I've got the signal line being fed along with a power line from DC hub. So these two lines go back down across this, through this braided hose, and then pop out here to supply power to the mount, and then also signal to the mount. And I use my computer, obviously, to control the whole setup. Thanks for sticking with me through this longer video. I know it was long, but there was a lot to cover, lots of pieces to this puzzle. If you hang on just another second or two, I'll show you a picture of what I was able to capture of Orion with this setup. So I do look forward to any questions or comments that you guys may have. And yeah, so thanks for watching Space Junk. I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks.